Welcome to Psych Insight, where we view the world through the lens of psychology. Have you ever wondered why your decisions and actions today might not make sense when you look back at them in the future? It's a question that piques our curiosity, isn't it? This phenomenon, dear listeners, is what we call short-sightedness, a human trait that often distorts our understanding of reality and prompts us to make decisions that may not serve us well in the long run. Let's dive deeper into this concept. Picture this. You're in a dense forest, and all you can see are the trees surrounding you. That's your immediate reality. But what if you could somehow elevate your perspective, perhaps climb a tall tree or a hill? You'd see the forest in its entirety, wouldn't you? That's the difference between a short-sighted and a far-sighted perspective. Our immediate circumstances, like the trees in our metaphor, often cloud our vision, limiting our understanding of the larger picture. Now, you might ask, how does this short-sightedness affect our behavior? Well, when we're engrossed in the nitty-gritty of our daily lives, we tend to make decisions based on our current situation without considering the broader context or the potential future consequences. We might opt for quick fixes or immediate gratification, disregarding the long-term effects of our actions. And that's where the problem lies. But don't worry, there's a solution to this predicament. What if we told you that you could elevate your perspective, just like in our forest metaphor? This process of gaining a far-sighted perspective involves distancing ourselves from the present, scrutinizing the problem at hand more deeply, and peering into the future to understand the potential consequences of our actions. It's like stepping back to see the whole picture before making a move. The key to overcoming short-sightedness lies in elevating our perspective. But how do we do that? Well, stick around, dear listeners. The journey to better decision-making is about to get a lot more interesting. Please share, like, and subscribe. History is filled with examples of short-sightedness, where decisions made in the moment, without foresight or consideration for the future, led to disastrous consequences. Let's take a journey back in time and explore some of these instances. Our first stop is the icy waters of the North Atlantic, where the infamous Titanic met her untimely end in 1912. The Titanic, dubbed as unsinkable, was a marvel of engineering. However, the overconfidence of its creators and the disregard for potential dangers led to the ship carrying far fewer lifeboats than required for its passengers. The result? A devastating tragedy that claimed more than 1,500 lives. This event serves as a grim reminder of the dangers of overconfidence and short-sighted planning. Next, we fast forward to the financial crisis of 2008, a period marked by reckless lending practices, short-sighted financial policies, and an inflated housing market. Banks and financial institutions were more focused on immediate profits, ignoring the growing risk of a financial meltdown. When the bubble finally burst, millions of people lost their jobs and homes, and economies worldwide were plunged into recession. This crisis underscores the perils of prioritizing short-term gains over long-term stability. Finally, let's travel further back in time to the era of ancient civilizations. Many of these societies, like the Mayans and the Easter Islanders, collapsed due to environmental degradation and resource depletion. They exploited their natural resources to such an extent that their environments could no longer sustain their populations. This historical lesson serves as a stark reminder of the long-term consequences of short-sighted exploitation of natural resources. These examples, though diverse, share a common thread: the failure to consider long-term consequences in decision-making. They serve as a stark reminder of the potential disasters that short-sightedness can lead to, emphasizing the importance of adopting a far-sighted perspective in our actions. Developing a far-sighted perspective isn't as complex as it sounds. It's all about rising above our current circumstances and looking beyond the immediate. It's like climbing a hill. From the top, you can see the whole landscape, not just your immediate surroundings. To develop this perspective, we need to start by emotionally detaching ourselves from the issues at hand. It's like stepping out of the frame to see the whole picture. This doesn't mean ignoring our feelings, but rather not letting them cloud our judgment. It's about viewing our situations as if we were a neutral observer, which allows us to make decisions less influenced by our immediate emotions or biases. Next, we delve deep into the problem. We don't just skim the surface, but dive into the depth, seeking multiple explanations. This involves looking at the entire context, the factors that led to the problem, and the various stakeholders involved. It's like being a detective, piecing together a puzzle. We don't just look at the obvious, but also the hidden, the subtle, and the overlooked. Finally, we must project our vision into the future. This is where we consider the potential consequences of our actions. We need to ask ourselves, if I take this step, what might happen next? How might this decision affect others? How might it influence the course of things in the long run? It's about understanding that every action sets off a chain of reactions and taking the time to think through what those reactions might be. In essence, gaining a far-sighted perspective involves 3 key steps: distancing yourself from the present, examining the problem deeply, and considering the future consequences of your actions. It's about stepping back, looking closely, and thinking ahead. It's not an overnight process, but rather a deliberate approach that requires practice and patience. Remember, our perspective shapes our reality. By widening our lens, we can see more, understand better, and make wiser decisions. The journey towards a far-sighted perspective is a conscious one. It begins with awareness. Recognizing the signs of short-sighted thinking is the first step towards a broader perspective. Let's delve into the 4 common signs of such thinking and see how each one hampers our ability to plan for the long term. Firstly, short-sightedness often manifests in a failure to consider unintended consequences. When we're immersed in the urgency of the present, we might hastily devise a solution without regard for its potential repercussions. However, every action sets off a chain of reactions, and overlooking the obvious negative consequences can be the difference between success and failure. Secondly, getting involved in petty arguments is another sign of short-sightedness. Being in the thick of a quarrel might feel important at the moment, but it's often just a drain on our time and energy. These battles are more about feeding our egos than achieving long-term goals. So when you find yourself in such a situation, it's best to step back. Instead of focusing on winning arguments, concentrate on your actions and long-term objectives. The third sign is an addiction to the minute-by-minute news cycle. While staying informed about current events might seem like active participation in the world, it often leads to impatience and a shortened attention span. Concentrating on fragments of the moment distracts us from the larger picture. The remedy to this is patience. Slow down, wait before taking action, and keep your long-term goals in sharp focus. Finally, exposure to information overload is a clear indication of short-sightedness. When we don't have our priorities straight, we can easily feel overwhelmed by the sheer volume of information that we have access to. In such cases, it's crucial to develop a mental filtering system based on our priorities and long-term objectives. This will prevent mental exhaustion and confusion. Awareness of these signs is the starting point. The next step is to actively counter them. In the upcoming scenes, we'll explore strategies to tackle short-sightedness and unlock the power of a far-sighted perspective. So stay tuned. Perspective is a powerful tool that can either limit us or propel us forward. To illustrate the power of a far-sighted perspective, let's look at some historical examples of this mindset. First, let's travel back to the 1960s, to the era of the Apollo moon missions. This was a colossal endeavor that required meticulous long-term planning, innovative thinking, and unwavering commitment. Imagine the level of far-sightedness required to envision humans setting foot on the moon, at a time when the very idea seemed like a distant dream. Yet this vision was not only conceived, but also successfully executed. This is a testament to the power of a far-sighted perspective. Next, let's consider the creation of national parks. This was a visionary move by far-sighted individuals who recognized the importance of preserving the natural beauty of our planet for future generations. They understood that immediate economic gains from exploiting these lands would be dwarfed by the long-term benefits of conservation. Their far-sighted perspective has ensured that we continue to enjoy these natural wonders today. Finally, let's look at the development of the internet. This revolutionary project began as a military experiment in the late 1960s. But the visionaries behind it saw its potential to revolutionize communication and information sharing on a global scale. Their far-sighted perspective paved the way for the information age that we live in today. These examples remind us that a far-sighted perspective can lead to groundbreaking achievements and lasting legacies. They encourage us to look beyond the immediate, to consider the larger picture, and to strive for long-term goals. So, as we explore strategies to tackle short-sightedness, let's remember the power of a far-sighted perspective. Stay with us as we delve deeper into this in the upcoming scenes. Overcoming short-sightedness is not about ignoring the present, but about making the present work for the future. To do this, we need to take practical steps to counter short-sightedness. It isn't easy, but it's worthwhile. Let's delve into some strategies that can help us tackle this challenge. First off, cultivating patience. In a world that moves at breakneck speed, patience might seem like a forgotten virtue, but it's more important than ever. We've become so accustomed to instant gratification that we often forget the value of waiting, of letting things unfold naturally. Patience is a muscle we need to exercise. It's about resisting the urge for quick fixes and understanding that most worthwhile things take time. Next, we need to keep our eyes on our long-term goals. It's easy to get swept up in the immediate, the urgent, the now. But if we want to avoid being blindsided by short-sightedness, we need to keep our long-term aspirations in sight. What are your dreams, your ambitions, your hopes for the future? Keep them at the forefront of your mind. Let them guide your decisions and actions, rather than being led astray by fleeting distractions or temporary setbacks. Finally, we must develop a mental filtering system for information. In the age of information overload, not all data is equal. Some of it is crucial, some of it is interesting, and a lot of it is just noise. Learning to filter out the unnecessary and focus on the essential is a valuable skill. It helps us avoid feeling overwhelmed and keeps our minds clear for what really matters. Think about what information aligns with your long-term goals, what truly adds value to your life, and let that guide your attention. By actively combating short-sightedness, we set the stage for a future that aligns with our long-term goals. It's about crafting a tomorrow that mirrors our dreams, not just reacting to the demands of today. And remember, the journey towards a far-sighted perspective is just as important as the destination. So take your time, stay focused, and keep moving forward. Elevating our perspective is not just a tool for decision-making, it's a lens through which we can understand our past, present, and future. It's like climbing a hill. As we ascend, the view expands, the details diminish, and we start to see the landscape in its entirety. Similarly, as we elevate our perspective, we can better comprehend the grand tapestry of our lives. Let's take a closer look at the benefits of a far-sighted perspective. First, it significantly improves our decision-making. When we detach ourselves from the immediacy of the present, we can see the broader implications of our choices. This wider view helps us avoid pitfalls, seize opportunities, and steer our lives with wisdom and foresight. It's like having a compass in the wilderness of life, guiding us towards our true north. Next, a far-sighted perspective enhances our understanding of ourselves and others. It allows us to see patterns in our behavior, recognize our biases, and understand the motivations behind our actions. It also helps us empathize with others, as we can see the larger context of their actions and reactions. We stop seeing people as villains or heroes, but as complex individuals shaped by their unique experiences. This nuanced understanding fosters compassion, tolerance, and deeper connections. Moreover, a far-sighted perspective gives us a clearer vision of the future. It helps us see beyond the fog of uncertainty and fear that often clouds our vision. We can see our long-term goals not as distant mirages, but as tangible destinations we can reach with determination and perseverance. But perhaps the most transformative aspect of a far-sighted perspective is how it reframes our view of time. We often fear the passage of time, associating it with aging and loss. But with an elevated perspective, we see time as a tool for gaining wisdom, experience, and perspective. It's not a ticking clock, but a wise teacher guiding us through the chapters of our lives. As we elevate our perspective, we don't just become better decision-makers. We become better navigators of our own lives. We become the captains of our own ships, charting our course with confidence, clarity, and a keen eye on the horizon.